Hey folks, today we're going to be taking a look at my living room setup because people have requested it. So let's take a look at it, shall we? I mean, some of you requested how it's all hooked up and all that stuff as well, but it's changed a lot since I first made the apartment tour video, so let's take a look at it. So since the apartment tour video, I have procured a CRT television for older game systems. This way, light gun games will work, and it's cheaper than buying something like a FrameMeister that's $400 now. This was about $30. So, $30 plus shipping. So, much cheaper purchase, I think, so, comparatively. So, what is the kind of setup we have here? Well, my transfer PC sits next to this whole thing because it's near all the VCRs and whatnot, so I decided to stick it there, along with a keyboard next to it. I use this Unicomp keyboard with it. Works quite well. Move over to the left a little bit is the CRT television, which there's an extra HDMI switcher on top of that. My little globe. I have a Dell TV tuner that is for streaming. Actually, I'm going to start using this TV tuner for some game streaming at some point, because I've wanted to do that for a while, and now I have a setup where it's ideal to do it, so I can drag a laptop over here, plug this in, and stream. So we might be doing that in the future. We'll have to see. If not, I can record footage with it, so it'll be nice. So we have my Symphonic CRT, which I previously made a video of. Some of you might ask how it's been holding up and how good the picture is. It's a pretty low-end TV. I mean, it's RF only. It has a slight overscan issues sometimes, but other than that, it's fine. Like, it does just fine for video games, which is what I use it for. And sometimes for, I have a Roku hooked up to it as well, so sometimes I'll run a show or a video on this TV while playing a game on this TV, or vice versa. So, there's that as well. As you can see, I've got an abundance of like AV switchers and equipment and all that kind of stuff here, and we'll take a look at that. To the left of this TV is my LG TV. I forget what the model of this TV is, but it's essentially a 32-inch 720p LG TV. It's got some HDMI. It's got all the inputs I want on it. It has HDMI. Has a couple HDMIs. It has component and composite combined into one like set of connectors. Right now I'm using the component portion of that. There's nothing AV hooked up to this TV whatsoever. And yeah, this is the primary TV I use for watching things like YouTube videos or Sling TV or you know, whatever else I want to watch. And what this all is sitting on is an IKEA piece of furniture, which has a nice mesh front and back, which means I can stick consoles in here and they'll still have good ventilation with the door shut, which I really like. So we'll take you on a bit of a tour of that once I grab my fancy light here. So what's behind door number 1? Da 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 da. Or more appropriately, da 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 da. Up top we have a TurboGrafx 16, which I got recently actually. Fantastic gaming system. I got it with the Turbo Tap and some other stuff, and I have an engine block AV on the end of it so that I can get AV out of this thing. So up top I got a TurboGrafx. I also have an EverDrive for this thing, so I can play all the Japanese games and all that stuff too. So it's pretty nice. Below that I have an Atari 7800 Pro system. This is hooked up via RF. This can play 7800 and 2600 games. This is hooked up via AV. This is hooked up via RF. I have a Dreamcast, of course. Next to that, that's door number 1. And what's behind door number 2, huh? Behind door number 2, we have quite a bit of equipment here. There's an Xbox One, a Model 2 Super Nintendo, which I've modified so it can play Japanese games. original Nintendo, which I've installed a blinking light win inside of, so it doesn't do the blinky blinky anymore. And up top, we have a bunch of equipment. There's an RF modulator made by Radio Shack that I use. These are some of the better RF modulators to get, which is what I'm using for this TV. This is why this TV doesn't look all that bad, because I have a really good RF modulator hooked into it. I won this for $2.25 at an eBay auction. It's a fantastic RF modulator, though. If you find an old TV that is RF only, don't give up hope. If you have a good RF modulator, you can make it look pretty darn good. And pretty much any RF modulator from Radio Shack will look good. Just find one somewhere, and it'll look fine. Below that, I have one of these 8-port AV switchers, just like I do up top over there. These are also fantastic. They're pretty generic. They're all over eBay. On input number 8, I have this AV switcher hooked up because I have a lot of stuff. So I have switchers hooked into switchers. It's kind of a mess, but I've made it in such a way that it's at least somewhat presentable, I think. I don't know what you guys think. I think I did a pretty good job. So that's what's behind door number 2. What's behind door number 3? Alright, so another sleuth of equipment. Up top we have a Wii U, a slim PS2, an 80s Zenith VCR, which plays non-hi-fi tapes quite well. I love this thing. It's an absolute tank. I mean, it's one of those old VCRs that has a big door like that, so that's cool. An Xbox 360E, and a mid-2000s VCR, which plays hi-fi tapes pretty well. So, as you can see, I've not given up on VHS. These VCRs actually go over to the transfer PC, which is why they're there in the first place. So it makes them look like they're part of my entertainment center, and while they're hooked up to this TV, they're only hooked up there to monitor. They're not really hooked up there to really use all that much, because I don't watch too many VHS tapes anymore. I typically digitize them and then watch them that way, so that's what's in this thing. The newest addition in this particular setup is the Wii U. So there you have it. So then you move up here, and you have things like my AV switcher there. You have stacks of power bricks there. So those are for the Xboxes and the Wii U. Let's move that back up here. Behind here is a whole mess of wires. I have literally just like surge protectors plugged into a surge protecting 6-outlet splitter. It's pretty messy, so you know. There's one thing I'd like to highlight though. You see this box down here? That is a video distribution amplifier, and what that does is it takes one input and amplifies it so that you can have 4 outputs of the same input going into 4 different sources. So I have the output of my switchers, the one in door number 2, the one up here. Those are fed into this 2-way switcher, which is then fed into the video distribution amplifier. And that video distribution amplifier goes to the RF modulator in there, which hooks into this TV. And the other output goes from the video distribution amplifier goes into this particular TV tuner card. So it's kind of a complicated and messy setup, but it works pretty darn well for me anyway. So there you go. That's how everything is hooked up. I'll continue to give you a tour here. Start with the top shelf this time. I have like a replica of an old fan here, which does work, by the way. I use that to keep me cool while I'm sitting on the couch over there. Up here I have a PlayStation 3, the newer version with that flip-top thing, along with the memory card adapter that lets you plug your old memory cards into a PS3. I have that up there for my PS3 games, of course. Below that, we have an Atari Jaguar, a Panasonic FZ1 3DO, an original Xbox, which I need to change. I need to take out the clock capacitor in that. Thanks for reminding me of that, the tech plank. I really need to do that. Nintendo 64, of course, for all those good old-fashioned party games. An original PlayStation. You saw that earlier. I have a GameCube here as well. Below that, I have a Sega Saturn with the Action Replay in it for games, and I have a Sega Genesis with the 32X and the Sega CD attached. It's an absolute mess back there, as you can see, an absolute spaghetti mess. So, I think at some point I'm going to tackle that, because it's just bad. One thing I should mention is I also have a switch, a network switch hooked up there, which plugs into a Powerline Ethernet adapter here. So, for things like my PS3, I have those plugged directly into wired internet through my Powerline Ethernet network. And that works really, really well, actually. So, for consoles where wireless is an issue, that's generally what I do with them, is I just plug them into my network switch. And that also allows me to use my original Xbox on the network. So, we could do it linked to Xbox Halo, like it's 15 years ago. It's awesome. So, you know, there you have it. That's essentially the whole setup. It's not the most glamorous looking, especially that spaghetti mess behind there. I really need to get my Velcro cable ties out and clean that up a little bit because it looks awful. But you know, there you have it. There are other devices in use, of course. There's the Roku that's hooked up to the LCD TV there. Behind door number 2, there's also a Roku that I forgot to show you. So I have the Roku XS behind all this stuff here, and that is hooked into one of the AV inputs for this TV, so that if I want to view video on the CRT, I can. So that's how this is all hooked up. And as far as capacity to put more consoles, I could fit one up right here, I think. What's probably going to end up happening is there's going to be a PS4 underneath this PS3 when I decide to get one of those. As far as games go, a lot of my disc games are in the CD carousel thing that I have here. So you can see a lot of PlayStation and Dreamcast games are on this side, and my whole PlayStation collection's on that side. So, you know, that's for disc games. For cartridge games, I have bins like that. Both in my closet in the other room and out here. So there is that. I also have this wicker, I don't know if it's a wicker, but this like basket just full of games. There's the Turbo Graphics EverDrive I mentioned. This thing is pretty cool. Sega CD game, Sega Saturn games, Sega CD games, Wii U games, PS3 games, Xbox, PS2, GameCube games, Xbox 360 games, you name it. The one I've been playing lately is Zelda Breath of the Wild, and my goodness, this game is so good. So, there is that. But essentially, that's how my whole entertainment center thing is set up. It's centered around being able to hook up as many consoles as I can at the same time. So if I feel like playing one at a particular time, I can just hit a button or two and turn on the TV and go for it, or turn on the TV and go for it. Oh, I forgot. I have a Radio Shack 4-way HDMI switcher here for the LCD TV. I also have another switcher in the back there, right down here. So it's just a mess of kind of switchers and cables and whatever. It's not a pretty sight. I mean, hooking up this much stuff is going to be a mess no matter what you do, but you can at least make it look presentable. And while this is a bit of a mess right now because I've been screwing around with video game stuff a lot lately, like look at all this crap on the floor. Look at these joysticks and whatnot. I have a lot of stuff, including like a stylus and just Wii U controller and all that stuff. Is just, stuff is everywhere. So you know, I've been messing around with this stuff lately. Hell, I have my film lighting on top of a ColecoVision, so. And there's, of course, the Steam stuff, which I have yet to make videos of. Yeah, it's going to really be a mess no matter what you do sometimes. I'm hoping to at least fix the HDMI portion of the switching. Hopefully they make 8-way HDMI switchers eventually that don't cost $1 million, because I would like to get some of those. And, you know, be up to snuff, I suppose. If I can get a couple 8-way HDMI switchers, I'll be set for a while. But the 4 and the 3-way ones seem to work fine for the moment, so not too worried about it. But that's how I hook all my stuff up. It's not pretty, it's a mess, but if you take a look back and you ignore that mess below, let's just let's forget that was ever a thing. But if you take a look at it, it doesn't look all that bad. I mean, it just looks very slightly messy to me. But everything's hooked up. It looks all right, you know. So that's how this whole setup works. For those of you who are wondering, there's a tour of what's there and how I've hooked all of it up. So, you know, if you can get a hold of these AV switchers because you think they might be useful, take a look on eBay. They're definitely on there. And there are other options for switchers as well, such as Radio Shack ones like this that I've had for a while. That's my advice, is get yourself some switchers and just manage the cables as best you can. Some people are good at it, I'm not good at it, so there you have it, guys. I should mention that most of the consoles I have are hooked up AV when possible. The only one that's really hooked up via RF anymore is the Atari 7800, because that does not have an option for composite at all. And it's very picky about it, so I might end up modding that system at some point. I'm not really sure yet, but other than that, most of the stuff here is hooked up via AV, HDMI, and component. The one thing that is hooked up component, since I only have one port, is the Wii U. The Wii U is hooked up via component, and it works very well that way. I happened to get a cable for that from the thrift store, and I decided to use it, so that works quite well. That frees up an HDMI port for something else. So this is the whole living room setup here. So this is a really fun setup for friends of mine and I to watch movies or play video games or do whatever. It's a good place to just hang out. You know, I kind of like it. There's just plenty of options for entertainment. And I like that, especially when they're at a push of a button on a switcher or something like that. So, pretty cool. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And have a good one, everybody. Ciao.